All right, it is now 3:32, and I will call this meeting to order as I believe we are all present. Janet, will you please call the roll?
Councilmember Trupiano. Here. Councilmember Tillman.
Here.
Councilmember Cloven.
I'm here.
Vice Mayor Diaz.
Yes.
And Mayor Juan.
I am here. Our next item is public comment, but before we get to that, I will just mention that we did have a special meeting on Saturday in closed session, and from that meeting, there was nothing to report out. So, and then now I will move on to public comment on non-agenda items. This sounds really loud.
Pledge? No pledge.
There is no pledge on the agenda for the special meeting. So this is item 2, public comment on non-agenda items. If you have a comment on anything not on the agenda, now is your time. I have one speaker card, which looks like it will about to be 2. So, Mr. Killeran, you're up first.
Yeah.
It's too obvious. Good day. Yes, thank you. Good day. As a fiscal conservative who's worked on many successful Republican campaigns, I'm always concerned when a candidate declares no new taxes. This concern in Clayton, with a known structural revenue deficit, is the council will find hidden ways to raise taxes. Last week, I heard the city hired a consultant to possibly seek significant raises to our permanent inspection fees. Permanent inspection fees have become bureaucratic hidden taxes, which cities are using to raise its revenues. The fees charged by big cities are not about cost recovery. Rather, it's about sticking it to homeowners. Our city's master fee schedule is already onerous and intrusive. Last year, I was quoted near $3,000 in permit inspection fees to replace my small driveway. Further raises for fees to align with big cities would represent the largest, and again, the largest tax increase to the citizens of Clayton. The divisions of Oakhurst are 25 to 30 years of age, with most homes due for significant repair and remodeling. Other developments in Clayton are much older. Homeowners should not be penalized by this tax grab when they decide to invest in their community. As Mayor Juan said in a meeting last year, the city should not be involved in home improvement. Instead of raising fees to homeowners and charitable organizations, I propose the city implement a limited police general fund parcel tax. This parcel tax will be significantly less in the long run than permanent inspection fees that hit you all at once in the thousands of dollars. And furthermore, with this parcel tax, it is sustainable and is also equitable to all residents of Clayton. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Scott Denslow.
Hey guys, I hope you all are having a beautiful day. Forgive me for being extemporaneous. I have nothing prepared. It's all in my head right now. I'm just getting back from Mount Diablo, taking some beautiful pictures of butterflies and birds, so I can't wait to go develop them later, or edit them later. Also want to thank Peter. You made a very strong statement with your goals today. I want to thank you for your support for the police. Recent polls show that's something we all agree on as Claytonians. We love the police. We want to support the police. So Peter, well done, man. Holly, you showed support immediately. Well done. Really appreciate you guys supporting something that all Claytonians think is possibly the most important thing, public safety and supporting the police. So again, thank you guys. Very, very strong. Hope everybody can kind of sign on board to that notion. Jeff, recent reports show we're in a deficit, and we got to do something about it. What your plan has done thus far is kind of piecemeal some small solutions, and so it kind of shows me that maybe what you're doing here is just trying to say, hey, I did a little bit of this, I did a little bit of that, a little bit of that, and then you're out of office. It's someone else's problem. You don't have to be accountable to it. It's, I don't know. It's not what we're talking about in terms of Claytonians working together, and recent reports show it's going to get worse using the current methods that we're using. So you're a numbers guy, man. So study the numbers. Understand what you're possibly getting us into. It's already happened a couple of times. So work together with all Claytonians to do the right thing. And that's all you got to say. Just other than no new taxes and parcels, I'm sorry, everything else that you're suggesting is also a tax in some form. So again, just you're a numbers guy. And by the way, show us the numbers. You still haven't done that. You keep talking about all these numbers. Show us the numbers, Jeff, please. Thank you for your time, guys.
Thank you. Next up is Terry Denslow.
Okay, I will look to speak later on the agenda topic. As far as non-agenda, I would like to make a request for the council and the city staff to consider. I understand that the next steps of the discussion with the CBCA will be to sit down and to renegotiate that contract. As I understand it, that contract was originally negotiated between the CBCA and the city staff, specifically the city manager. I think that with 4 of the 5 council members as CBCA members, I think that presents a conflict of interest for those folks to be and the ones negotiating this, and this really needs to be a question between the CBCA and the city staff. And so I'd like to ask that the city manager and the mayor take that into consideration. It is also something that, as a CBCA member, I'm going to be pushing heavily with the board, and I know other members will be as well. So it was something I wanted to mention, and I hope you guys will take that into consideration. We've already had, as you know, there's always a perception that there's no division between the CBCA and the city, and I think that moving forward, having CBCA members be negotiating on behalf of the city with the CBCA creates a conflict of interest, and it creates some of those bad perceptions that we try so hard to get rid of. So thank you.
Thank you. I do not have any other speaker cards. Janet, do you have anyone online? Oh. Mr. Hayden, please.
This is a follow-up to the discussion that was held at the last meeting, and with the focus that is going to be used for renegotiations for the agreement, the master agreement between the city and the CBCA, I strongly recommend that you get research and get input from the individuals that negotiated that original master agreement representing the city, to find out what the city had in mind when they arrived at that fee structure that you're questioning. I think deserves more research to find out what that master agreement was based on, because there were some waiver, but I think there was a lot of discussion that resulted in the overall plan for the fee structure that was included in that master agreement. So I think it behooves you to find out what that was based on as part of your analysis as you move into possibly renegotiating some of those funds. All right?
Thank you. Janet, do we have anyone online?
Mayor Juan, I do not have any hands raised on this item.
Thank you. I will close public comment on non-agenda items. Next is item 3, our consent calendar. This is, well, I will not read this. If our city manager would like to introduce this.
Certainly. The item before you today is our annual goal-setting session.
Actually, wait one moment.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. We're
I
on the
jumped
wrong
the gun a
item.
little bit. So this is the consent calendar.
Sure,
I switched the order a little bit.
I'm sorry.
Is there any discussion on this consent calendar item? Okay, is there any public comment on the consent calendar item? I skipped ahead, sorry.
Mayor Juan, I do not have any hands raised on this item.
Okay, then I would entertain a motion for this.
Move approval?
I'll second.
Thank you. Janet, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Tropiano,
Yes.
Councilmember Tillman,
Yes.
Councilmember Cloven,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Diaz,
Yes.
Mayor Juan.
Aye. All right, that was the one. All right, so that concludes item 3. Item 4 is action items and from our city manager.
Thank you, Mayor Juan. Is this on? Yes, okay. This is our goal setting session for this year. The goal is that this would be less for. Can you all, is it on? Yes? Okay. All right. So I'm gonna do this standing up because this is intended to be a less formal setting than our normal meetings, and the goal is that this is a less formal discussion for you all. And so, Mayor Juan, I don't know if you'd like to make some introductory statements before I lay out the groundwork here.
Just very briefly, I would say this is a tight agenda. We do have somewhat of a limited time window because this room is reserved after this. So I think we are intending to spend the bulk of our time on items 4 and 6. And so it's really important that we understand both what we as a council are interested in targeting, as well as I had purposely asked for for staff to also bring forward some of their items that they were interested in as well. I think a lot of this will kind of bleed into the discussion that we are planning to have on April 4th, which the use of ARPA funds will come back as well. So with that, I would turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mayor Juan and members of the City Council. So very briefly, what we're going to be doing here is a goal-setting session where you all will be highlighting your top priorities for the upcoming fiscal year specifically, meaning through end of June 2024. But I would also like you to keep in mind that we want to look out to a 3 to 5 and even 10-year horizon as far as thinking bigger, so that when we are accomplishing the goals coming forward, we're proceeding towards that end. And so although it does inform our budget coming up, it also is thinking a little bit bigger and longer term. I included in the council packet today, and I know it may have looked a little bit rough to you all, but I took history off of the city website. The organizational assessment, as you can see, is very well done and very professional. Our staff, we asked them, our department heads, to put together what they see as their priorities and some of the things, the tools and the technology they would like to use for the upcoming ARPA money, if that's available. And so you might see that isn't necessarily in a very formal format, but I wanted you to see how they think about things when they look into them. And I originally intended to have each of them come up here and make a short presentation, but due to the time constraints that we have, I thought it'd be best if you all just asked them questions specifically if you had them during the section in the meeting after the organizational assessment is presented. And so what we're going to be doing format-wise is going through the organizational assessment. Rick Otto is going to be making that presentation. He will then, after he's done and you've asked him questions, will then go up and be working on the flip charts for us, capturing ideas that you have. I'll be helping him, putting them up there on the walls. And so the goal is that this is not a formal discussion, but something where you all can have a conversation amongst yourselves about what you'd like to see happen. As you know, Clayton has a very rich history, which you've seen in there, starting back in the 1850s with Joel Clayton and his wife Margaret coming here and settling, going into incorporation in 1964, and since then, you know, we're almost 60 years into a city. And so it has entrepreneurial roots, and I believe that's part of the character and what Clayton represents today and what makes it such an amazing community. One of the things I did want to touch on really quickly, since I only put about 5 minutes on the agenda for this, is the council's goals, or excuse me, your mission, vision, and your values. And I just want to make sure, we're not going to dive into these today, but I want to make sure that all of you agree that this is something that still is representative of who Clayton is. And so we have we have it up here in front of the dais. We've also set it up here in front. I'll call it the city motto of do the right thing, because it's the right thing to do. And included in those characteristics of that, and I'll just read them off, are inclusion, courage, integrity, kindness, respect, responsibility, and self-discipline. So I would just ask, are those still the values and the characteristics that we believe Clayton is built on today? Would I get folks? Yes? Okay, so we can stay with that. We're not going to come back and revisit that. Our mission says that we're to enhance the city of Clayton by providing quality service through responsible stewardship, effective collaboration, and continuous progress. Would we say that that is still what we're striving for as a city council and a community? Yes? Okay. Yes? Okay, good. And then our vision, I don't see this very often, but I'm going to read it to you. It's more oriented towards the staff, and it says, the City of Clayton organization will be recognized as a premier small city. Customer service will be our hallmark. Organizational processes will be a model of efficiency and effectiveness. Innovation will be commonplace, and excellence of work product will be the norm. The employees will enjoy their work environment, and each will be a valued and respected member in his or her field of work. All residents and the city council will be proud of their city government. Would you all agree that that's something that we would still say is representative of what our vision is for Clayton? Aspirational? Yes. Okay.
Be our vision. If this is going to be our vision, let's go ahead and live that vision. Let's recommit to that, because right now there's been a lot of reasons why that has been very short on accomplishing it.
Okay.
And I just want to be very clear that has not been accomplished. And if you ask our staff that, they'll tell you that that's not the way they've been feeling.
Okay. All right. So we still aspire to this. There's no reason to change it. It's just something we need to work on, is what I'm hearing. Work toward. Okay. And then finally, our values: excellence, integrity, respect, and teamwork. Would we say that those are still the values for Clayton?
Again, I think that's aspirational. I don't think that we've been respecting at all. There are things that we need to work on.
Okay.
How about transparency, too? That would be another one. I know that comes up all the time, being transparent.
Okay. We will take note of that, and if that's something that the council would like to, we'll come back in the future. If that's something you'd like to add to the list of values, we can do that as well.
What's the point of having a mission statement with vision and values for aspirations if we don't live that? So that is something that I would very want to have a conversation around at some point.
Okay.
One of my goals.
All right, very good. And I sense that this is indicative of the city council's leadership as well as the staff in executing this as well, correct? Mm-hmm. Okay. All right, thank you. Note taken. The next thing I just wanted to touch on quickly is the guidelines and procedures for the city council. I'm not going to go through those. I hope and presume that you've all read those and are familiar with them. Is there anything in those that we want to look at a future date to modify or change?
Yes, please. This will be the fourth time that I've asked for it. So you weren't here, but yes, we need to take a deeper dive. It's completely outdated. And I'll just give an example. It talks about paging the city manager. Nobody's paging anybody, right?
Yes.
So we know that this is all old. And we also are not abiding by a lot of the things that are in here, or at least the perception of what we should be doing, which is causing a lot of confusion in our small town. For example, there are people who think that the ascension to mayor is in lockstep, which it clearly states it is not, which is why I think there was a lot of angst when that didn't happen, when Jeff was skipped over, which is why I said when we just did the last rotation, if we want to talk about how to actually move the vice mayor up to the mayor position and how that rotation will work, if we don't want it to be a popularity contest or who the majority is, then we have to have a real discussion as a council on how that works. Other cities do it by when you were voted in, based on what place you came in, then you rotate up that way. That way there's no feelings hurt, it is in lockstep. So I think we have to have real discussions with each other about how that should happen so that the community isn't getting confused on why we do things the way we do. Further, I think that exactly what happened last week, which was something got placed on the agenda without following the proper protocol, and I saw that you had mentioned it was because in the procedures, it is up to the mayor or whatever, and you guys can have a conversation and put it on. That's how it used to be done back in the day, and we had conversations since I've been elected on stopping that because that was an issue for a lot of council members. So that's why we have at the end of our agenda to ask for something to be placed on the future agenda. We talk about what that should be as a council, and at least vocalize it here in the chambers. That didn't happen, which is why I think a lot of people were upset that it was placed on the agenda the way that it was. And I'm talking about the CBCA issue. So there's a few things that we should be cleaning up in here, and I'm happy we don't have to do it now since we don't have time. I did try to do this last year when we did have the time allotted to do it, but we had to cut the meeting short early because I think you had an appointment. So I would like this to be on like an agenda right away.
There's also a serious blatant disregard for one of the rules with regard to receiving phone calls and texts from constituents during meetings on the dais.
All right, so it sounds like we will bring that, oh, I'm sorry, yes.
No, I was just going to say, I mean, obviously, we don't have the time to do that today, and I saw many of the same things that are being voiced here. So we just need to set it up as a separate session and go through each item one at a time. One and done, and it probably should be cleaned up and good to go for at least another couple of years. So, yeah. Special session, whatever it would take, yeah.
All right, any other comments on that? All right, thank you. I'm glad we touched on that quickly. The final thing before we get into our organizational assessment was just last year's goals. So the council had 3 goals that they wanted to see accomplished. One of them was the adoption of the housing element, which was done and turned into the HCD before the deadline of January the 31st. So it's ready for them to certify it, hopefully. They have 60 days, which will take us to the beginning of April. So that was accomplished. Another one was for us to pursue a structurally sustainable or budget. We are pursuing that. Last year, we were $127,000 short, which was made up through one-time monies. And so we will be bringing forward, one of my goals this year is to bring forward a balanced budget. And so that's something that we will be working on this year. And then the final thing was to pursue tools and technology to bring us into the 21st century. We've started working on a project to do that where we've redone our wiring, our switching, our firewall. We're making some improvements. We're updating our software as far as making sure it's the latest version of Office. And we have a company that is now on call on a regular basis in order to provide technical support. So there's been some advances made in that regard, and we will continue to pursue that going forward. So with that, I want to get on to the meat of our meeting today. It's going to start with the organizational assessment. Rick Otto is here from Municipal Resource Group, also known as MRG. He has a long career in public sector, most recently as Orange's city manager. I believe it was for 7-8 years. I'm amazed that he made it that long. It's a long time for a city manager these days. But so he brings a wealth of information and also ability to assess organizations. And so his task here was to look at our organization to find out how we compare up with other cities of similar sizes, and then to take that and make sure that it aligns with the types of things we do here in Clayton, because every community is different, and we're not a complete full-service community. So we tried to accomplish that, and then he analyzed our weaknesses and our strengths, and then he came up with recommendations for what would the ideal staffing model look like here for Clayton, and what are some types of things that we can do moving forward. So I'll let Rick take it from here and fill you in on that study, and he did a nice PowerPoint for us as well. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. It's a pleasure to be here. As Ron said, I'm Rick Otto. The only other thing I'll add to his very nice introduction of my career, my first 10 years of my career, I worked for 3 small cities in Southern California, all 3 around the same size, just slightly larger than Clayton. So I'm all very aware of how challenging and rewarding it is to work in a small city environment. So MRG had been asked to prepare an organizational assessment. Let's step back for a second and find out why we did that. So last year, the city conducted a survey of its residents and found that, next slide, please. Sorry, I remember getting that mode. All right. Found that most local voters, 94%, were satisfied with the quality of life here in Clayton. That is a fantastic number that the city council should be very proud of. But that's why we're here today. We're here to make sure that number stays, if not grows, over the next several years. So hence why the city decided to do an organizational assessment to take a look at, next slide please, yeah, perfect, as an independent assessment of the city organizational structure and operations to see how best to deliver services in the future. So how do we do that? There's a number of processes and goals that we wanted to go about doing that. We wanted to assess the organizational structure and staffing levels, examine current workload of existing staff, identify expected delivery levels, assess operational efficiencies, and identify future staffing needs based on organizational recommendations. What we didn't do is we did not put constraints related to fiscal. We certainly understand Clayton's fiscal situation right now, but we did not want to be constrained in looking at the big picture of what was right for the organization. So we certainly acknowledge that a number of recommendations in here probably cannot be implemented without a reallocation of resources or new resources be made available to the city. Next slide, please. So let's talk about methodology. How did we go about doing the study? We did a deep dive on the current organization and the structure. We interviewed staff. We did an extensive document review. And finally, we did a comparison study of nearby cities. So let's look at the organization as it is today. Next slide, please. You have an administration comprised of the city manager's office, finance, and city clerk's office. You have 3 standalone departments of police, community development, public works, and then you have contract services with your city engineer, city attorney, and then your utilities are provided by a third party. All that done with 27.6 full-time employees, which is pretty impressive. And even more impressive when you consider almost half of those are with the Clayton Police Department. So it's, you're doing a lot with little. The next slide is just a look at the organizational chart that is currently in place. Pretty typical of a small city, but I will say one thing, an observation you'll see throughout, it's a very flat organizational chart. So that's something that we'll talk about in the future. Staff interviews, we explored with the staff their individual roles in the organization, critical issues facing the city, organizational culture, strengths and weaknesses, internal communication and collaboration, resource availability and needs, and finally, process issues and possible solutions. In looking at documents, we did everything from the city budget to council agendas and minutes, all the way to city website content and the aforementioned March survey that was done last year. And looking at the cities that we compared to, this MRG and city staff came up with 5 cities in the nearby area that we wanted to compare Clayton to. The 5 cities are up on the screen, but Moronga, Pinole, Piedmont, St. Helena, and Sebastopol. As you can see, they're relatively similar in size. Where it starts deviating is the number of employees that all those cities have. Next. Yeah, in some cases, by a lot, yes. And that's because of urban versus suburban, financial resources, needs of the community. So there's lots of reasons why that's the case. The next slide just shows the location of those various cities. And then the next slide does look at a little deeper dive. The report certainly goes in a deep dive of comparing all the cities, but this chart goes into the kind of distribution of staffing by department. And really where it Where it really starts to deviate is as the cities get larger in staff, those comparisons can become a little more difficult. So, next slide, please. We really focused on Moraga because they are similar size to Clayton, and even the structure is somewhat similar. But you still want to look at, why is their community development department a little larger? Why is their public works department a little larger? So we kind of did dive into that, and the report does give those results. Next slide, please. All right, so of all that we took several months to just get into all the data, we were able to put together some findings. So next slide, please. So first, let's talk about the strengths of the organization, and there's a lot we should be proud of. The staff is very focused on delivering excellent service to the residents. Staff feels very positive that they're able to accomplish their day-to-day responsibilities. Staff feels supported by the management, and for the most part, feels supported by the city council. Use of contractual services is essential and been part of the success of the city. The technology agreement that the police department has with the city of Concord is fantastic and keeps the police department up to date on technology. And then finally, the community volunteerism in this community is fantastic, and that has been a part of the success in how the city delivers community engagement. All right, next slide is talking about findings that we found on weaknesses in the organization. First of all, the small number of staff presents a number of challenges to the city. The report gave a lot of examples of that, but I'll highlight a few. Vacancies are very hard in the city when they do occur. There is no time for long-term planning and strategic initiatives. There's challenges in checks and balances in relation to financial issues. And finally, there's no time for staff enrichment activities, whether it's training or team building efforts, which are very important in an organization. Human resources is an ancillary function, and that is an issue because the city manager often becomes the backup on human resource issues when they become a little more complex, taking time away from the city manager's normal duties. Community development department is undersized. The level of activity over the last 2 years is significantly more in land use requests than what was done in the past, and as a result, it's straining the activity of the community development department. Likewise, the Public Works Department is somewhat undersized as well, given the demands in the community. In addition, in addition, Public Works also doesn't have a long-term view of infrastructure needs. As I mentioned earlier, it's a flat organization, but with being a flat organization, succession planning is not part of the mindset in this town. Related to that, there's a staff attrition and retention issue. Some of that's related to the no succession planning, and some of that's related to the salary structure that's in place. There's limited use of technology. The city manager mentioned earlier that that's one of the goals of the council last year, and the staff has been working on doing some foundation of that work, but there's a lot to accomplish going forward. The city is lacking online services related to permitting, paying online. It's lacking a lot of backdoor or back of the house issues such as records management, work permits, permit wording, can't you say it? Service level permits and other types of processes that allow the staff to manage its infrastructure and its resources via technology. And then finally, there's limited goal settings and measurable goals in the organization at the staff level. Council does a good job with this process, and there just needs to be a cascading of the goal setting at the staff level as well. So of all that, the MRG team looked at the findings and then came up with 15 different recommendations that we want to present to you tonight. 8 of those are related to staffing, and then 7 of those are related to operations. So let's talk about staffing recommendations. Our first recommendation is to immediately fill the assistant to the city manager position. That's a position that is critical to supporting the city manager. and plays a lot of roles in this community, and that position needs to be filled immediately. The finance director position, over time, we are suggesting becomes an administrative services director. That position could serve more as an umbrella over the whole administration of the city and have a greater responsibility for providing administrative services to the community. The finance department needs a permanent accounting position. As part of the budget this current fiscal year, the council did approve funding for a temporary one-year senior accountant. Unfortunately, because it was a temporary position, the city had a difficulty filling that position because the talent pool is very small who would be interested in a one-year position. So the city did not fill that position. Going forward, there is definitely a need for that position, as I mentioned, related to checks and balances and just workload in the finance department. And so we're suggesting a full-time permanent accounting position going forward. The city needs a professionally trained and experienced human resources individual. We're not saying it has to be a new position, but at least in looking at whether you're filling the assistant to the city manager, maybe the finance director or administrative services director over time has that responsibility, or maybe the person who's doing it right now has more training. But all we're acknowledging is that needs to be a foundation of ensuring that position can handle all levels of human resource issues and not rely on the city manager to do the more complex issues. Community development needs additional staff. As I mentioned earlier, the level of activity is very high and it's expected to stay at a high level to deliver the services that the community expects. We're suggesting an additional associate planner be added. That will allow, that position will support all current land use issues, as well as some long-range land use issues that are in need for this community. Public Works should be led by a management level employee. As I mentioned earlier, that there's a lot of long-range projects that are not getting looked at in Public Works, and we think that step back, that big picture needs to be done by a management level employee. So we're suggesting that at a minimum, a Public Works manager position be added to support that department. In addition, we're suggesting that an additional senior maintenance worker be added to the department to address primarily maintenance preventive maintenance issues, which has been lacking so far in this community. And then finally, the police department should upgrade one of its sergeant positions to a lieutenant position. This is where we talked about the flat organization. That is very much the case in PD, where you have police officers, you have sergeants, and then you have the chief. And there's a significant gap between those two, the sergeant and the chief position. To be more effective for the community, we're suggesting that a lieutenant position be added into the department, and that will serve to support the chief, become the clear number 2 in the department, as well as provide day-to-day support to the 3 other sergeants. So that summarizes the staffing recommendations. Now we'll look at the operational recommendations. First of all, we want to request that the city do a salary survey and adjust salaries in this community to be more commensurate with the marketplace, at least in the marketplace of smaller cities in the surrounding Bay Area. Increase opportunities for succession planning. Many of the recommendations on the previous slide did help that succession planning, but we also want to make sure the city instills in its culture succession planning specific to more enrichment opportunities for staff and encouraging that succession planning going forward. Continue to contract with services for where you have that expertise needed for projects or legal services or environmental review. It has been very successful for this city, and the city should continue doing so. Prepare an information technology master plan. So we talked about that the information technology is in the early stages of becoming more in the 21st century. There's a lot to accomplish. What we believe the city should do is actually do a comprehensive information technology plan to identify how to pay for it, what needs to be done, and how to manage it in the future. And so that is something that will serve as a good roadmap going forward on how to prioritize technology projects. Similar to that, we are recommending that the city establishes a capital improvement plan that looks at short-term and long-term maintenance needs for your city infrastructure. The city has hundreds of millions, of infrastructure in streets, trails, parks, buildings, signals. In order to plan accordingly on how to maintain all those facilities, a very comprehensive capital improvement plan is necessary to ensure that, again, prioritization is happening. One thing we identified is the city has a need to establish job responsibilities. Given all the vacancies, given the short staff, people have assumed duties that are not part of their normal day-to-day activities and not part of their job description. We want to kind of take all those back and have the city take a look at every role that's currently in place and to reassign their responsibilities so it's very clear who does what. And then finally, city leadership should follow up with the council and do their own goal setting based off the council's goals. And then continue to do that actively throughout the year and then make that kind of a practice. And with those goals, then there'll be measurable standards that the city manager can measure with the staff's activities and report back those to the council. So that is an overall review of the recommendations that MRG had come up with. This slide is a snapshot, at least, of what the organization looks like today with what the organization would look like if you added the additional positions that we believe will make the city of Clayton even stronger than it is today. Next slide. So in summary, we had a couple challenges that we identified and a couple solutions. So a challenge in case of the city staff issues, you have some departments that are undersized, have flat organizational structures, and have had a number of vacancies that have put a strain on the organization and caused some instability and inefficiency. So how do we solve that? We recommend a couple of positions, some reclassifications to make the organization more nimble and stronger in the future, and actually will deliver better services to your residents. Likewise, we saw challenges on long-range strategic planning, planning of infrastructure, and the inability to make impactful change in this organization. So by doing an IT plan, a capital improvement plan, and a more focus on strategic planning, that will allow the city a roadmap for the future and how to succeed. Next slide, please. So this is not meant to be, this needs to be implemented tomorrow. This is meant to be a plan that as decisions come up and the council has a fork in the road as to what decision to make on a particular position or a particular need, this plan is that resource to say, what's the best action based off what the plan had put together. So while there's a lot of recommendations in here that add staff or add an expense to the city, this is meant to be used as a prioritization tool. So that concludes my report. I'm available for questions, and I should note that, as you can see here, is my contact information, as well as contact information for Nancy Kazar, who is a consultant with MRG that assisted on this project. Council, do you have any questions?
Thank you very much, Mr. Otto, for this comprehensive plan that you put together for us, or this, I can't think of the term that it is, assessment. Thank you. I do have a question. So you just mentioned at the very end that it's kind of our long-range plan, but is this in priority order already, the way that you numbered the 15 items?
It would not be in priority order, because we did want to put staffing in the first priority, or the first kind of grouping, and then operational in the second grouping. So I would say there's no priority order, other than probably the assistant city manager. I would say that would be number one, just because
Okay.
it's a vacant position and it's clearly needed.
Okay. I was kind of looking at both of them side by side. So if I had both of those side by side, that number 9, the adjust salary and compensation structure, would mean actually put together that plan, like have that survey going out right now, in conjunction with trying to find the assistant city manager. Would that be the way that you say to do it, or no?
I would.
Just
That's
focus
not
on the
my,
assistant
but
city
say that's
manager?
not my role to play. I think that's the
is,
council's role to play.
but I'm looking for your-
determine the prioritization. Of the staffing decision or the staffing recommendations, I think what's most critical to the city is ensuring that you are addressing kind of that gap between your department heads and your line staff. It's a pretty big gap in almost every department. So I think that needs to be addressed sooner than later if they're asking for a prioritization. And, there's a couple recommendations in there. I'm not going to say one's more important than the other, though.
No, thank you. That's helpful.
I've got a ton of questions. You go first. I want you to go first. Yes, I wish you would go first.
I have some questions while they figure that out.
This goes on all the time, but let me jump in here. First of all, are you suggesting that the need for staffing levels that we have or do have, that we can fill them with the current FTEs? Or do we have to add?
The
FTE, full-time
Yeah, full-time.
employees.
The recommendation of this report is making an accountant position permanent. So that is within your FTE right now, although that FTE for that position goes away theoretically at the end of this fiscal year. And then 3 additional positions. So what we're recommending is beyond the current 27.6 FTE.
Okay, what do you ultimately see us having to be at? If not 27.6, what number?
What we're recommending is 30.6.
Pardon me, 30?
30.6.
Okay. And the question is, where do we get the funding for all that? That's another issue. That's another issue down the line. You suggest that immediately we have to replace the assistant to the city manager position.
That is correct.
Wouldn't it be prudent to wait until our new city manager takes on the position so that he or she can select that person, because that's going to be a direct aid to the city manager? In other words, should Mr. Burnell hire them now, or should we wait until the new city manager takes the position?
It is clear from an outsider point of view, an independent outsider point of view, that position is needed immediately. In reality, if you start the recruitment today, you may or may not have a city manager in place before that recruitment is finished. So timing-wise, it may work out either way.
Yeah, because we haven't had that position filled in probably close to 7 months.
And your organization is suffering because of that.
So there should be some savings there on the budget for that. Also, the other thing, when you look at that position, did you do a job description? And the reason why I bring this up, the past incumbent that had that position tended to go beyond the responsibilities of an assistant to the city manager and actually got into some of the line functions of other people in city. And that created not only a problem with the city staff, but externally with our community. So have you done an analysis of what that position should be charged to do?
As the report suggested, that position became a catch-all position for some of the reasons you had indicated. We did look at the current job description of that position, and we are
And
suggesting...
what did it say? I would like to hear your assessment of it.
Well, I can't regurgitate everything that was said in that job description. However, I will say that job description is pretty typical for an assistant to the city manager, covering any way to support the city manager is really what that role is. But it got involved in franchising, and it got involved in a lot of areas that you would typically see assistant to the city manager do. But what we're suggesting is that needs to be relooked at based on what the current needs are for the organization.
Yeah.
So as I said, one of the possibilities is that position could be serve a greater role in human resource functions, depending on the skill set of that individual. So I don't think I would be constrained to what the job description says today. I would, look for an individual that meets the needs for the organization for tomorrow.
Yeah. I will tell you from firsthand experience, we had more hell of a trouble with that position in the past. And now that it's been unfilled in 7 months, there's been some peace in the valley for a change. I can tell you that on firsthand. Okay, I noticed you didn't spend much time on the organization chart, which I'd like to refer to.
Okay.
As soon as I find it again. Here we go. I notice when you look at the organization chart, obviously the citizens are at the top of the scale, and that's
as they should be.
Why we're all here. Next comes the city council. Then we have a couple of committees, including the planning commission and the trails and landscape. Then we have 3 positions that appear to report to the city council: treasurer, city manager, city attorney. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's the way
that's
the chart.
Correct.
Yeah,
I'm just trying to validate.
Yep.
Because the only one that truly reports to the city council, in my view, is the city manager. The city attorney, in many occasions, doesn't report to the city council. It helps and supports the city manager, which I find a problem, okay? So I don't know how we clarify that up, but that's something that I would want to see going forward to make sure that, in fact, the city attorney supports the city council and works for the city council, not the city manager.
She does. She does.
What?
She does work for us.
Yeah.
And
I think
she
you're
supports
missing
us.
my point. But
No,
let me
I think you're
finish-
trying to
let me
throw her under
finish
the
my,
bus, and it's not cool.
Questions here with Mr.
Order.
Yes. And the city treasurer, for all intents and purposes, is sort of a sidebar because it only comes in to look at some of the financials and also be there to sign checks and so forth for that. So I just want, I want to clarify and make sure that this, as depicted, is actually in effect.
Well, I think that we can take that into our
Huh?
part of our goals if we want to talk about that further. I think Mr. Otto is presenting.
I'll defer now to the other council members because I still have more questions. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Rick. This was wonderful. A couple of my questions are, who is tasked with reviewing the job descriptions, roles, and responsibilities? Is that something we engage with your company in doing?
So the
And kind
response.
of the same with the compensation structure as well.
So that generally is done under the umbrella of human resources. Certain cities can do that in-house. Your size city, probably not. So there are many firms out there that do both of those services. So they're out there to assist your city on looking at salary, class and compensation studies, as well as organizational structure as well.
The structure and the compensation as
yes.
well, so that it's,
Correct.
okay. And the only other question I had at this time, I've got a lot of other questions, but for the, we do use consultants and contractors and vendors to supplement a lot of our work. Did you, in your assessment, did that feel like kind of the right balance, or?
It did. And that's why it was one of the recommendations that, or the finding and a recommendation, that it does seem to work very well. The contract city engineer seems to work very well, contract city attorney, using consultants for environmental studies related to land use. Those are all typical and do very well in this organization. So I'm comfortable with the level that you use contractual services. For a city this size, you're going to rely on that maybe more than your typical full-service city. And it's just the responsibility of staff to manage those contracts effectively and prudently.
And just to add on to that, one of the things that I've brought it up many times, is I'd like to have a little bit more of a competitive bidding process on that too. And it's kind of unusual, we don't have that even online, and I know we are limited in some of our online services.
And that's, I would say that's probably one of the recommendations for the Public Works manager, that position would be responsible, because Public Works has a lot of contracts, right? And so that position would be kind of more engaged in that type of activity and how you go about that bidding process.
Okay, and just to piggyback onto that, one of your recommendations was that perhaps using the use of city engineering consultant to sort of oversee the Public Works department if we don't add a full-time.
I would be careful, we're not going to say oversee. An alternative recommendation was to use that position, that contract, to serve as an advisory role. You cannot have a contract employee supervising a city employee. That's against several state issues.
Of course.
However, that position can be a little bit more engaged in infrastructure management of the city. In doing so, serve as an advisory role to the Public Works staff.
Okay, thank you.
So you've clearly looked at our staffing as it exists right now, and you've made the recommendation we need to adjust our fee schedule. We're going to be getting into some interesting conversations regarding budget this year, let alone long-term fiscal sustainability relative to our current staffing. And now you've added 3 full-time equivalents as a suggestion for our future staffing. So just talking about our current staffing, did you do any financial analysis of what dollar value we're under on an annual basis by what we're paying our current staff as a cumulative number?
We did not make that assessment. We did not look at, if I'm thinking you're asking is, given that we found that your staff compensation is slightly under, what would that nexus be to bring it? We did not do that analysis.
Thank you. That's the thing. We'll have conversations about that. But then given the 3 additional full-time equivalents that you're suggesting, again, just for planning purposes going forward, have you estimated what that number might be on an annual basis?
Did not do that because we didn't want to presuppose what the council direction was going to be. So I don't have a number for you, but 3 additional positions, I'm not even going to throw out a number.
Just swag it.
I hate to do that because you just there's so many factors that go into that.
We have salary scales. We can look at it.
I just want to hear the number, just a swag. And I won't hold you to it, I promise.
Yeah, I would actually defer to the city manager if, given he has a better understanding of the structure and how.
Again, this is important information, and I appreciate your bringing it to our attention because, again, we have some difficult conversations about what the future might look like and how to address those issues. So thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So kind of piggybacking off of that a little bit, with the 3 positions, I think you had net 3, but you're also converting a temp position, so I'm going to call that 4.
Yes.
Why? I guess this is kind of a rhetorical question, but I think I was looking for a little bit more detail. You've settled on a number, but it doesn't really describe the duties that you're talking about that these 3 or 4 FTEs would then take up. Do you have a sense of what that would be net new that is either going to shift from existing positions or capabilities or functions that we would do in addition that we're not currently doing that would support the 3 or 4?
So let's talk about, say, the Public Works Manager position as an example. We touched on it just a few minutes ago. There is the department right now does a very good job, although they're stretched very thin, but they do a very good job right now of getting the day-to-day activities done. And God bless them, during the storm periods, they've run around like crazy. Okay, as is typical of any public works department. What's not happening is that big picture, long view of how to maintain your infrastructure. You have a lot of infrastructure in this community. Trails, buildings, streets, roads, signals. You're not, right now, there's no long-term view of those infrastructure. Someone had mentioned the city is close to 60 years old. Your infrastructure is aging. We're all aging, but your infrastructure is aging. And there's going to be a time where you're going to get behind the 8 ball. And that's why that position is really going to be a leader in making sure the city stays ahead of the curve on maintaining your infrastructure, both short-term and long-term. That is a full-time job. That's not happening today.
That's a great example. Some of the others?
The accounting position, I think, stands on its own, to be honest with you. Obviously, the city had identified a need for a temporary position in the current fiscal year. And unfortunately, that position was never really filled the way it was intended. But the need is there to take a leadership role in the audits, become part of the process on checks and balances that is absolutely necessary, that keeps the city manager out of I'll be back up for a second. What's happening today is because and some of it's related to the vacancies, but some of it's related to the structure. The city manager spends so little time being the city manager that kind of the overall viewpoint of the city, because the city manager is involved in accounting, involved in HR, involved in, quite frankly, public works issues on a daily basis, that takes so much away from being the city manager that the council, need to lead the city. And so that accounting position is a great example of what was happening today on the city manager taking an accounting role, quite frankly, particularly while the finance director was vacant, where that accounting position going forward will really support the finance director and allow the city manager to be a city manager.
Okay,
So I truly believe it's a full-time position.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful. We definitely have certain constraints there. There was one other question. You had mentioned, actually 2 questions. You had mentioned that in the absence of the assistant to city manager position that the organization had suffered over the past 7-ish months. Can you elaborate a little bit on that statement?
I'm just going back through my notes visually. So it came up in almost every interview that I had. I'm doing X because that position is vacant. I'm doing Y because that position is vacant. And so it was taking away staff's normal responsibilities. So for instance, and I hope I don't get this wrong, but you had the community development director who was doing roles that were previously being done by the assistant to the city manager in relating to, I think it was permits and room usage rentals. That's not the job of the community development director, to be honest with you. And so you were, again, taking away from her regular role to support what was something that the assistant to the city manager was doing. And that was across the board. I pretty much, the person's responsibilities got spread across the entire staff. whether they had the experience or the time or not. And so it was very evident from the outset in looking at the organization that vacancy was leaving a significant hole to the organization.
Okay, no, that's helpful, thank you. The last question I had was regarding contract services. You know, we do have two, what would otherwise be department heads, our engineering and city attorney, our contract services. You know, there was discussion of bringing one of those in-house, but in your recommendation, you recommend to continue in the current state. Were you on the fence on that?
No. A city this size, I don't know what the city had looked at in the past, but I'll talk about both of them. A city of this size, in-house legal really doesn't make sense. Just because the amount of legal possibilities that a contract allows the city to dive into and use would be far beneficial than have an in-house person, because you're going to end up going contract out for many of those services anyway. As for the city engineer, I think for this organization, I think it works well, but we did identify that contract needs to be more folded into the Public Works process, the Public Works Department, and therefore more engagement, I guess, with the Public Works process. I think it works well, I think, as long as that position becomes more folded in.
Okay, thank you. That's, I think that's all the questions I have right now. Was there any other questions?
Yeah, I've got some more, but
I just had one more. Were there also any other services that you thought we might be able to share with other municipalities nearby, similar to some of the services we share with the police?
Right. I mean, that's a home run, the way I view that contract with Concord. There is certainly opportunities for regionalism, and if you saw my resume, I was a very big advocate of that in Orange County. Where I think it works well is situations like joint contracting on public works projects. Situations where maybe it's an IT solution might work or something like that. There are times and places when it works. I think the issue that you have here in Clayton is you're so small relative to your neighbors that kind of using those contracts, if you were in a contract for certain services with your neighbors, you become the small fish in a very large pond. And that can be a challenge unless it's kind of structured that's beneficial to the city. But it's always worth looking.
Okay, thank
always
you.
worth looking.
Mm-hmm. And also the effects of our impending climate tech agreement. I don't know if we're going to have a discussion around that today, but when we're talking about infrastructure, I don't know if you've been privy to that.
I wasn't, but I'm familiar with climate tech and what they do.
Okay.
So I'm familiar with that type
So
of
maybe we can
project.
talk about that later.
It may come up in item 6.
Okay.
the red button. $27.6 FTEs now, correct?
Correct.
And you're suggesting we go to 30.0?
30.6.
30.6?
Yes.
What are we doing with that half person?
Well, if you look at, you have the city has a number of part-time positions.
Yeah, I know we do. That's what I'm aiming here.
So that's why you kind of end up with an odd number, because you have a couple, 0.6s, 0.8s, 0.7s.
Okay. So where do you say the 3 positions that are being added, if we're going to go from 27.6 to 30.6? Is my math right?
Yes. So
That's 3.
As the mayor suggested,
I'm a simple guy. I can count to 5. Tell me about that. So how do we get from 27.6 to 30.6?
What are the new positions? Is that what you're
Yeah, I
asking?
want to know where you're recommending the positions go.
So it is the Well, if you want to go to page,
I've got
yeah,
all
it
that.
is.
Wait a minute. Can
Go
I
to
hear
Page
Mr.
21,
Rich?
if you want to slide to page 21, you can see the organizational chart, or at least the scheduled positions. On the left-hand column is what you have in place today, and then the final column is what is being recommended. And of the additional positions, and as the mayor characterized, it's really kind of a net 4 because you have one temporary position in place that we're recommending making that full-time. So that is, right now you have a temporary senior accountant position that we're recommending to be a full-time accountant position.
Okay, and I appreciate all that.
Okay.
I want to get the facts,
Right,
numbers.
so
Let's do it 1, 2,
Okay,
3.
so accountant
and find out
position
where they
is
are.
accountant
Number
position
one
is-
position, you're saying we're going to put in another accountant. Is that correct?
Correct.
That's number one position. We're
number
making
2.
progress.
Associate planner.
And
Add an associate planner.
add a associate planner. Okay. And number 3,
Public Works manager. Public Works manager.
Public Works manager.
Correct.
Okay.
And then number 4 would be a senior maintenance worker, also in Public Works.
Okay. So the police department, you're suggesting if we're going to add this lieutenant's position, is going to do it within the numbers that they have.
That is correct.
Because what I don't want the police, and this is personal, because I had worked in that department for 10 years, don't want to see heavy administrative top end. We need more people at the grassroots and on the patrol level. I don't see that at all in your recommendations.
In looking
Because we
at,
have a traffic enforcement problem in this community. Go ahead.
in looking at the police organization, we believe that you're currently staffed appropriately at the officer level, in the sergeant level. Should the city grow further, that number would need to be relooked at. But currently, where you are in good shape with the number of sworn positions you have today. But we are recommending converting one of the 4 sergeant positions to a lieutenant position to bridge that very large gap between sergeant and chief.
We can discuss more of that later, but thank you.
Okay.
All right, and with that, I do not think, is there anyone else that had other questions that they would like to ask? Okay. I think that concludes number 4 on our mini agenda here. Thank you very much for the presentation. That was helpful.
Mayor and council, thank you very much for the time. And as the city manager indicated, I'm still here to support the rest of this meeting. So, but very pleasure to meet all of you and look forward to helping you continue with this meeting.
We may call on you again.
I'm here.
The next thing that we had slated was department goals. So I will assume that we will take the materials as read, and that if there are questions, as our city manager indicated, that we can ask them of the department. I think that's a good way to go. If we wanted to, we could approach them in order. I think that would kind of give us a little bit of organization if we are okay with that.
Will the department heads have an opportunity to get up to the podium and talk about their?
If we do have questions, I think yes. In the interest of time, I think our city manager indicated that rather than an individual presentation by each department, it would be more of a Socratic method.
Okay. Yes.
Does that comport?
Correct. And Mayor, if I might, we have 1 hour left.
We are running a little bit.
To complete the rest of what we're doing. And so please just keep that in mind. And then also we're going to want to either now or after the questions for the department heads, take public comment as well before the council deliberates.
Yes, I was going to insert public comment between number 5 and 6. After the comments from the department, I think that would be a nice logical place.
That'd be fine. But my preference would be instead of each of the departments getting up and giving you a presentation time-wise for you to ask questions specifically.
Okay, so if we're going to go in chronological order based on where they are in the agenda, one moment. I need to scroll. I believe first up is community development, if I recall. Yes. So, what's that?
Oh, you're right. I found it. Yep.
It is page 80 of the PDF. So if there are questions for community development, this is the product of a request that I made to kind of indicate things, tools, and for lack of a better term, wish list items that may assist in doing what we need to be doing. And so each department took it upon themselves to kind of itemize certain things, and so they're organized in a way that makes sense to the department. And so I've read through all of these. I think there's a lot of good ideas here, but if anyone had any questions for community development, I think now's a good time.
Well, the only question I had, Director Ayers, is did your new administrative code enforcement person, were they starting
Today.
today? And did they start? Yes, that's great.
Mission accomplished.
Mission accomplished. Did they come back after lunch? No. Thank you. That was my only question.
Director Ayers, will you please come up to the microphone? So I'm looking at the goals and priorities that you have, and they look to me like they're in chronological order. So under the next 6 to 12 months, are these listed in priority order for you?
No, not necessarily.
Okay. Out of those first 6, which ones would you like us to focus on more if you had your wish?
Well, number 1 has a time constraint to it, a statutory time constraint to
Yep.
it. So that is a high priority. Number 2, also, those have also some statutory time constraints. We can't drag on entitlement processes and entitlement applications indefinitely. So it's important for those to be completed. Going back to Mr. Otto's comments, that's one where we do have support from environmental consultant helping with part of that. Number 6 is rather low on the list because it's something we're already doing. So it's just a matter of maintaining that momentum.
Okay.
Is that a challenge of time, money, or both for number 6?
A little bit of both. Number 6 is grant funded, and the grant, we have to have everything done basically by September in order to request reimbursement from the state for the grant funding.
Okay. And then I know that he had mentioned the permitting process and using technology for that. We've had several conversations in general about enhancing the technology in City Hall. Do you feel if that was in place right now, that would free up a lot of the time that you've had to take on extra responsibilities across the organization, specifically for the assistant to the city manager? Not saying that needs to be your role at all, but if that was in place sooner rather than later, that would be a big benefit.
Immediately, if it was already in place right now, yes, it would be a time saver. I would say, though, the challenge with starting any new program is ramping up to that program and building that program. And so it is, while it is extremely important and I think would improve efficiency and time management, accuracy, to have online payment opportunities, I do think there are a lot of benefits to it. There's also a bit of a capacity issue as far as getting that started right now, knowing that there are these other priorities that do have statutory constraints as far as time and grant funding budgets.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Could you elaborate a little bit on the volume of permit processing that we see on a kind of a regular basis?
For building permits, the last couple of years that I've seen, we've had generally in the range of 100 to 150, so every other day on average. They tend to, they don't necessarily come in space quite like that, but, and those can be as simple as window replacements where you can turn them around relatively quickly, but can also be as complex as new pools where there's engineering work that goes into that, there's demolition, there's additional permitting that needs to go into recycling material obligations. There's additional permitting that goes with some of those more complex projects.
Okay.
And that's on the ministerial side of it. On the discretionary side of it, which is the stuff that goes to Planning Commission, basically, that's what number 2 is. The number of applications that we've gotten in recent years related to discretionary entitlements has increased. When I look at about a 6 to 7 year average since 2016, we are seeing more development entitlement applications come in.
Okay. So that I could help you out, what is your pitch for this type of software? Like, what will it do for you?
Oh, for the permit management software? There is a mechanism for online payment. So.
Sold.
Okay.
Sorry.
All right, I'll stop there. Do I need to say more after that? Or,
I think we're pretty good.
okay.
All right, cool.
I just want to acknowledge the report of Mr. Otto and his description of his understanding of your efforts this past year. I know that you were hard at work putting together a housing element that took a lot of effort to put together. And then to be thrown into the quagmire of taking over other responsibilities that weren't necessarily yours and doing it well without sleep and still functioning well. I just want to say that I have a lot of gratitude for you and thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, next up is finance. Do we have questions for finance? There are listed here in similar fashion. There are 14 different items listed. Each of them has an approximate dollar amount. It looks like number 4 is probably similar to the permitting software, is what I would guess. Would you like to join us?
And I guess the same question that Councilmember Tillman asked earlier, are these prioritized in any particular way?
Actually, yeah, that's a better question first.
No, it is not. It was basically, we kind of put together what we foresee it in the next 2 to 3 years forecast, so it's not any mean. It's not any mean of the prioritize in order in a manner. So it's some of those things can be implemented rather quickly. It will brings the efficiency on a lot faster. So it's something that we foresee as the efficiency measures, how fast we can actually implement those items.
What would fall under that type of category?
It would be the implementing some of those online process with some of those like business license and some of those rental facility, having enhanced the online capability so the user could come in directly and the fill out information through the online website, our city websites, and as well as we have a capability for them to actually collect the on-demand payments directly through the systems. That kind of eliminates a lot of those process and actually the payment purposes too. So that also helps with our staff's efficiency of their time, and then also kind of the working into the way that we can actually kind of automated process created so our staff can focus on a little more the other day-to-day task with the short staffing at the moment. You want to add anything?
Is number 4 at the top the same as number 1 under ARPA at the bottom?
Let's see. Yes.
It's the same thing, yeah.
Yes.
And one of the things I will say, the goals and priorities are some of these items, for example, the comprehensive fiscal stability plan, general fund long-term analysis. That would be one of those items that we will be working on as part of the budget, also be part of the city's long-term fiscal health. So some of these items on here, we will be able to do in a 6 to 12 months, but some of these items may take a little bit of time. For example, the goal number 2, item number 7, is the update of the land use fees, and that usually requires a nexus study, and it requires us to update the city's impact fees. So that may take a lot longer than 6 months. But some of the other items like the transparency, goal 3, number 10, this is a system we already have in place. We are actually looking at to maximize the software and make it more user-friendly, but also make it more transparent and accountable. If you look at our website, we have been trying to, this is one of the things we're going to try to use to do budgeting, but also do presentations to council. As one of the things that came up is that when there's questions from council, we are always trying to, go on the laptop and bring it up.
What is stopping you from doing this right now, then?
It's some of these modules have extra, like this one has no cost, but it requires resources, staff time, resources to implement.
Time constraint?
Time constraint. So,
Okay.
but the plan is to really review all the resources, all the modules, and see where we can add value in a short period of time, and what are some of the ways we can reduce our time. And as I was trying to mention that when we do a budget to actual presentation to you, this system should be able to do that at the because we load our data on a monthly basis, so we should be able to just pull it up on that screen right here, and you should see what is your budget and what you have spent to date and what categories have those expenditures happen. So these are the type of stuff that number 10 is, and the number 11 is.
Can I just?
Go ahead.
Okay. On the number 10 item, I just want to clarify the one thing on that. We do already have the tools in place. However, because of lack of the straining of staffing, we will not be able to go in as a full capacity, and the capability that was ClearGov is designed to provide it to us. That's why we have not been able to actually tap into the full potential, the capacity. So that's the ClearGov is just to let you know it's coming in a way that my plan is within the next 6 months or so we should be fully on board and be able to share with provide much more transparencies and also help with the smoothing out these type of the mid-year budget and budget process.
And is that because of the turnover that we had? And there was no continuity over the last
Yes.
year? Okay.
Mhm.
And some of it was because the way it was built to basically manage some of the work that was at that time. It wasn't built to what it really should have been. So now I think with Angeline being here, I think we can slowly transition some of that build, and it will be a long-term success for the city as a whole, because you'll be able to update and you'll be able to do a lot more than some of those big cities. They cannot even do that. So I mean this will be a huge upgrade.
And I know we have a 3-year contract with them, I believe. And so just hearing that you guys will be using this more extensively in the future, it sounds like it's something that we would want to extend if possible, or are there other programs out there that you know about?
There are other programs out there. So with this ClearGov, if you remember, it used to be OpenGov that did something, then now ClearGov, and there's another Gov that will emerge eventually. Because, but the 3-year agreement at the moment is I would say is at the right point. The reason is because any companies they come in, they do a lot of implementation for you. It's they want to earn your business. So I think at this moment we want to make sure that this ClearGov can produce for us, and if they don't, then we'll be going out to other vendors. And also, it's part of a good procurement to go out there to see what else is out there, and are you paying the right dollar for the services.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Well, the only thing I just want to ask on top of that ClearGov is, are we using ClearGov to its maximum capability? And also, do we have a limitation on how many users there can be? Has that been a problem, or just really has it just been, there hasn't been training and we need to get ClearGov out here too?
That's exactly what it is.
Right. So I had a recently in-depth conversation with the ClearGov on the trying to maximize their tools and how we can utilize that within the city operations. And as far as what I have the gather from the discussion with the ClearGov, there's no limitations of how many users could go in. And however, there's a lot of the security measure built into that one, so we can limit who can access what and what level. So I think it's really beneficial for us to really manage in a way that it was designed to do so.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Next up is engineering. Engineering did not bless us with potential dollar estimates, so we have to we have to deduce them. But there are 7 items here, some of which have some sub-items. Do we have questions about any of these items?
I do have one question, Larry. Actually, I have 2 questions, and one is the GAD district. Is that part of your goals and priorities here? I didn't see it outlined specifically in here.
Some of the goals related in here could be utilized with the GAD, but it was not specifically prepared in mind of what the GAD needs. I think this was more just overall city operations. As you know, the GAD and the city are technically separate. But like, for example, the development of the CIP for like a 5-year, you can include GAD projects, just making sure it's identified with GAD funding as an example.
And then I just wanted to hear a little bit more about the JPA and your thoughts around that for solid waste services. Can you just elaborate on that a little bit?
Well, I know the JPA and solid waste isn't technically within city engineering, so maybe I am stepping out of my lane a little bit, so I will be careful. But I am aware that the city, has obviously solid waste contract. I believe it contracts directly, and there are a lot of solid waste requirements, especially within the last few years, that are monitored and have to be adhered to, that I'm not sure exactly which staff members have overseen that previously. So that's, naivete on my part, but other local agencies do either partner with other jurisdictions to contract their services, to try to negotiate a better rate. One example, one of my former employers, City of Orinda, where I was Public Works Director, didn't have its own solid waste. It went through a JPA called Recycle Smart, which has 6 different jurisdictions that they pool together, they negotiate the actual contract, but Recycle Smart is also a separate entity that does a lot of the reporting requirements. So it's done by the pooled third party. So then, my role as the Public Works Director at that time did not involve having to, look at all the, SB 1383 requirements, the organics, those type of things that have recently come up. That would fall within the Recycle Smart staff. Of course, you are paying for that, as part of your contract. But that one, Orinda was with Lafayette, I believe Moraga, Walnut Creek, Contra Costa County, I believe, on that particular JPA. And there's others, obviously.
Thank you.
I have a quick question. In regards to the advisory role, I guess that Mr. Otto mentioned that you could have over the Public Works or Maintenance Department. I'm thinking about that, and then also thinking about the Landscape Maintenance District and knowing that that's going to terminate, I think it's in 27, so we have to actually bring it back to the voters to extend. We talked about this in the last Trails and Landscape Committee meeting. And so I want to be sure that we, and as a council too, we can discuss it, but just trying to figure out how we make sure that your firm is looped in with the Trails and Landscape, and I know that we were talking about that with Ron as well, making sure that that doesn't get missed, and we don't miss that timeline to be able to bring a ballot measure next year, because we're only going to get 24 and 26 to actually bring it back to the voters. So I want to make sure that our council actually discusses that, but make sure that we're in contact with you, trying to figure out how that will work, and if there's additional terms that we need to add to your contract to make sure that that happens, I do want to ensure that that doesn't get missed. So just wanted to mention that.
Understood. I think, generally speaking, right now, the consultants we have on board to process, the assessments, which our contract does not currently include the Trails and Landscape District. But, it's very similar. We have a lot of the other districts. Those are for, obviously, getting it back before the tax roll each year, as you're aware. There are certainly consultants that help and advise on the voting process of either re-upping or increasing rates. Some of our consultants can participate in that, but there are definitely other ones that do the initiation process that are more familiar with it.
Okay.
Is this permit tracking system that you have as item 5, is that the same as?
Yeah,
as we
generally
discussed
speaking,
earlier?
I think our portion in the engineering department mainly deals with permits that are encroachments within the road right-of-way. So they fall into kind of 2 categories. The first category being major utilities, AT&T, PG&E, Contra Costa Water District. Those permits are relatively straightforward for us. The agency requests it, they're doing work within the street, they're trenching, or doing something up on the pole. And we're able to issue a permit, and then we will record our time, and then we bill back to those utility companies. So basically, we don't take a deposit every time. They because they're a bigger agency, and they're not going anywhere, then they're billed on I believe a monthly basis. And so as long as they're continuing to pay their bills, those are fine. But for individual permits that are done by homeowners, or in one particular case with Comcast, they use a third party called Cef&Co. They don't have this kind of agreement to basically get billed for it. So we need to, as part of those permits, I have to coordinate with the planning department to intake deposits and fees. So we coordinate on those where it's not appropriate for me to directly take the payment, so I have to coordinate back with the planning technician in the community development department on those ones. So an online system of payment helps reduce, for both of our ends, where we don't have to coordinate as much on those issues. We still would need to determine how those permits would be issued, because those are kind of joint permits.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for our engineering? Okay, thank you. Next, I know that we are somewhat a lot over time. We do have 2 more departments, and we could look at it. I don't want to give short shrift to those. So maintenance and police are remaining. Oh, sorry, and city clerk, 3 more departments. So we can go with maintenance. There are, again, a number of items here. I think there's 7, and they do all have dollar values associated with them. I will say that several of these would be contained within the proposal that Climate Tech is putting together. I think it does cover many of these items, so we will be discussing at least items 1, 2, and 3 through that program. And so that will come back on April the 4th as well. I think that's gonna need some significant other funding, so we'll discuss that on its own as part of the Climate Tech thing. So with that, we can still talk about them if you'd like, but we don't have to. They're essentially devices to help reduce the waste of water in the event of breakage and able to control irrigation more dynamically. So for the others, I think that I'd just say I give credit to Mr. Warburton. I think the descriptions are very descriptive, for lack of a better term. They really do tell what you're describing. So I don't really have any questions unless my fellow council members do.
I just have one quick question, Jim. Do we have, and I believe we do, but do we have a fleet agreement with, I want to say it was like Ford of Folsom, and I know we've got a Ford dealership that has a fleet department right here in Concord. Do we have a fleet agreement for our vehicles?
To the best of my knowledge, no, we don't.
Oh.
When I'm looking for a used vehicle, I usually just call around to the different Ford dealerships and see who has what we're looking for, and then we write a staff report and purchase the vehicle.
Have we ever made any contact with the folks at the Ford dealership in Concord?
Oh, yeah,
Okay,
yes.
because I do know the fleet manager there, and if there's an opportunity to get a better deal,
Maybe you can get us a great deal.
I could try. Rick Boyd is the general manager, and I've known him a long time, so
Okay.
yeah, we can talk about that. Otherwise, very comprehensive list, and thank you for all your hard work.
Oh, thank you.
Particularly, I know the next atmospheric river is coming tonight, so hang in there.
We're all on call, ready to go, so,
Thank you.
thank you.
I agree, it was very descriptive, so unless there's something else after you wrote this that you want to include. No?
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
For the police, I think there were 13 items here. And so did we have questions? This was also very descriptive as well. And so I think it's very clear what is being identified. I don't have specific questions other than, no, I actually don't have any questions. I thought this was really good, so.
I do, Chief. Can you tell me more about the drone program and how that really works out in the field?
Yeah, so drones are used by a lot of agencies now for many different things. If you have a suspect that's running and is now hiding in hidden areas such as backyards or open fields where it's not safe to send officers into those areas to search, a lot easier and safer way to do that is to fly the drone over the top, and you may be able to pinpoint exactly where that person is, and then you can get your resources around that rather than searching blindly looking for someone. We've discussed using them to evaluate the trails after the flooding and the different areas where the trails were sliding, and it's kind of muddy and hard to walk out there right in the middle of the storm, but you can utilize the drone to go out and take photos of things like that. They can also be used for search and rescue. If a person is missing and you have a general idea where they may be, but search and rescue efforts are not readily available, you can send a drone out and maybe quickly find the person that's missing. And then they've been used for getting up close to like a hostage situation. They can get up close to a window and actually see in the house and see what's going on, where it wouldn't be safe for a person to get up there and put themselves in harm's way like that. So there's very many benefits to them.
And would these be in each vehicle? Like, how does that?
No, my goal would just be to have one.
Okay.
And then if we needed it, we can send someone to the station to get it and bring it out. It would obviously take some training to get people to where they knew how to fly them. And I would hope everyone could get to the point where they could fly them. But if someone doesn't have that capability, then we'll have somebody else do it.
Thank you.
And to follow up on your question about Ford dealerships, the state has contract negotiated pricing for brand new vehicles for government agencies. So we've found that no matter which Ford dealer you go to, you're going to get the same price because it's negotiated statewide. So it really comes down to availability and their knowledge of what it is that you're looking for.
Thank you on that. And the only question I had was on your the training for the traffic officer position. So it'll be someone from the current staff, and that there will be some unique training involved with providing additional traffic safety and during commuting hours.
Correct, yes. We are currently looking for that person now within our current staff. And once we select that person, they will need to go to, if they haven't already attended radar and LiDAR class, LiDAR is the laser version of radar, they would need to go to those in order to be certified to use them. Because we have a motorcycle that they would be using when the weather's right, they would need to go to motor school and learn how to safely operate. Just riding a motorcycle in and of itself is not enough. You've got to be able to ride it in police-type conditions, and so they've got to go through a 2-week training class in Alameda for that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anything else?
Thank you. All right, next, last but not least, is HR. Again, there are 8 items here listed, and they do have associated dollar amounts. I think several of these are apparently chairs for us, so that's
Yes.
Can't complain about that. But I think these are fairly straightforward. What is the agenda management system?
So an agenda management system would, pretty much your agendas would be uniform, staff reports would be uniform, resolutions, ordinances, everything would be in a uniform font, style, and it can be used not just by myself, but by the planning department as well, or any other committees that we have. So we can have all digital. We're not passing paper around to everybody or passing emails around to everybody. It's all contained within the software program.
There's a few municipalities locally that I think they all use the same one.
Mm-hmm.
Is that this one?
I was looking at a different one called eScribe,
Okay.
and that one's had pretty good reviews. I've seen many demonstrations of all the different ones that are offered. They're all pretty much the same. Some just offer little things here and there that are different.
Okay.
I'm going to ask a silly question. What's DocuSign 500 envelopes mean?
That is how many signatures you can do. I believe it's per month.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm assuming that's the lowest, right?
I'm sorry?
Is that the lowest tier?
Oh, yes, that is the lowest one that we would be able to join with.
Okay. All right, well, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so that does conclude our department goals, and at this time, our next item is objectives, but before we do that, I think we should move to public comment.
Do we not want to do the city manager?
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. We have city manager goals as well. Thank you for putting these together. I do not have any questions on these because I'm very familiar with these, but if you have questions, feel free.
Ron, who would conduct the salary survey? Would that be an outside firm, like maybe MRG or another company that does that?
Correct.
I like the number one goal, hire a city manager. It's a good one. Okay. All right, well then, that concludes item number 5. I think public comment at this time is called for. So if you do have a public comment on this item, which is generally the goal setting, but it is also all of these sub-goals. So now is the time. If there's anyone in the room that would like to speak, please go ahead.
Jim Killerin. I just want to keep it very short. I know you're running long on time here. So it was a very great presentation by the third-party consultant, and I just did back of the hand number on what this would mean if we had 3 FTEs and also give appropriate salary raises. So if you look at salary raises at, let's say with burden, $10,000 for 27 employees, let's say we round up to $300,000. If we take 3 employees and you say that's $200,000 with payroll and burden, which is probably on the low figure, that's another $600,000 plus the $300,000. Plus you take another $100,000 for other stuff, which could be that we're underestimating labor costs, which we probably are, or you need things for technology and things. We're looking at $1 million. Now I know that there is a situation that we're looking at getting more fees or revenues from our investments for our dollars that we have. That would be a $200,000 savings. So if we take the $1 million back out to $200,000, it gets to $800,000. We have 4,000 households. That means we need at least a $200 parcel tax. So I was hoping it'd be $100, but at the bare minimum at $200, again, that's not dealing with the unfunded pension liability, which would probably bring you up to $400, $500. So again, I'm not proposing that we fund the unfunded pension liability, but it does look like we need at least $200 if we were to take on an extra 3 employees. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Next up is Terry Denslow.
I'd like to mention the study that was presented by Mr. Otto's really nice work. For me personally, none of it was a surprise. I read it in detail last night at midnight. Why was it not a surprise? Because Catherine talked about needing an accountant, because Raina brought forward that we had a budget issue. Raina brought forward a study talking about how our salaries aren't comparable. Because I watched personally firsthand while I was doing the permitting for the permits for the Pride Parade, how hard Dana was working. I've watched every one of these goal-setting sessions since 2019, and I've heard a lot of the same from the staff, talking about being overworked and not having sufficient resources. I also watched several council meetings last year where Catherine, Dana, and Raina were literally begging the council to do things differently, to give them the resources they need. The clear.gov discussion was just absolutely the most ridiculous, literally begging you guys to listen to what they're saying. So hopefully this study, maybe you needed someone else to come out and say it, and that hearing it from your own staff wasn't sufficient enough. But I hope that now that you have this outside staff that's telling you that there's some structural issues that need, and some sustainability issues that need to be addressed, that the council itself will look at this as a holistic issue, not one-offs. I'm going to take money from this, or I'm going to charge the CBCA more. I'm going to get some fees back so I don't go to ABAG and League of California Cities. That's not going to cover what he's just talked to you about. That's not going to cover the continual deficit that's going to go over the next 10 years that you've had multiple folks come to you in this chamber and talk about. So please take this serious. The residents of the city are paying attention, and they recognize that a lot of wool has been pulled over their eyes, and it's not going to be acceptable anymore.
Next up is Scott Denslow.
Hey, great report, man. Seriously, that's a lot of information there, and I would suggest that everybody just listen. We all learned a lot today. Like Terry said, it wasn't a surprise. Raina did such a great job when she was here. Just want to thank her for her efforts, and it was a shame to watch her get run so ragged all the time. But this is evidence as to what we've already seen and what we already know. We got some hiring to do, guys. You got to figure out how to do it. We don't need to find ways around it. We need to listen to the numbers. We need to analyze the report, and we need to move forward. That's all I got. Thank you for your time.
Next up is Keith Hayden.
Thank you, Council, and thank you very much for having a third party come in and analyze the needs of our city. I think it reinforces what many citizens have seen and in some cases complained about without really understanding the tremendous pressures that the council and the city staff is under to try to deliver services as expected to our residents. I think it would be very helpful to share the results of the organizational analysis and recommendations that alerts our citizens to the types of pressures, again, that most often are brought on by understaffing. And it might be also some changes within the organization that was also addressed. But I think it is going to be very helpful to have this report from a third party who came in and compared how Clayton operates compared to other similar communities of our size in the area, and has some very helpful suggestions on how we can operate better. Unfortunately, from our budget standpoint, it involves adding more staff, but I think we've all seen that that is going to assist our city addressing the needs of the citizens. People complain about landscaping, but I think this analysis shows that the biggest problem is the lack of resource. It's not because they aren't aware of what needs to be done and they need to reset their priorities. It's because they don't have enough people to address the issues. Same with the police department. Some people complain they need to address trafficking. And I see from this analysis, they think the organizational structure might assist that as well in making sure they focus on community issues that are a great concern to us. So I think there's a lot of value in this analysis that was done, And again, hopefully people will listen to it because it was done by a third party who's coming in with no axe to grind, no automatic reactions to what they observe. It's more an analysis of exactly what's going on and how could it be improved. So thank you.
Thank you. Janet, do we have anyone online?
Mayor Juan, I do have one hand raised. Frank, as I promote you to panelist, if you can please unmute your microphone, you'll have 3 minutes to speak.
Thank you, Mayor Juan. Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, please go ahead.
Thank you. So I want to thank former council member Keith Hayden for the same thing and for speaking without making underhanded insults at some of the council members. This is the best presentation. I've been attending these things too for a while. The ones in the past were a joke. We've had problems for a long time. It's not like the city went in the red all of a sudden. And unfortunately, the city is so divided, and one group really dislikes one set of candidates so much that they just decide to insult those candidates nonstop. Now there are complaints about that fees are going up. Everything is going up. The cost of a beer has gone up from said organization that might now be facing a little bit more in fees. There's so much talk about how we're all in this together and love is love and inclusivity and everything. The city is highly divided, and these little insults at council members back and forth. And you know what? I'll admit my faults right here, but it's so bad now. The last city council meeting was an absolute disgrace. And I've watched a former colleague of mine right now, the way that an underhanded insult was just slipped in. The speaker afterwards actually spoke decently that, hey, we need to listen and work on this. And that's what we should be doing. At the last city council meeting, I offered to meet with certain members that I have disagreed with politically to try and mend the fences. We all need this. At the council level, you guys all need to get along and get your jobs done, because for the last 2 years, nothing has been done, and that is a fact. We went in the red under the past 2 administrations. That is an undeniable fact. More time was spent on proclamations, on all kinds of things that had nothing to do with running the city. And although it may have been brought up by one council member to look at the investment portfolio, nothing was done. This current group is trying to get things done. And it's going to be a hard time for all of us because this is a small city with limited resources where most citizens do not want to pay more taxes. So I hope you guys can all work together and resolve the problems of our city. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Janet, do we have any other hands raised?
I do. Ed, as I promote you to panelist, if you can please unmute your microphone, you'll have 3 minutes to speak.
All right, I have to do the standard, can you hear me?
Yes, please go ahead.
Thank you very much. Yes, I just wanted to say that I was very happy to hear about the Recycle Smart JPA come up in conversation. I talked a lot about that during the campaign, and regionalism, which I guess is another name for sort of what I was proposing, of working with other regional municipalities to cooperate on where we could on certain things to save money. But I specifically wanted to offer this observation. Since there have been discussions of the lack of staffing manpower within the city and stuff, the opportunity to participate in the Recycle JPA, which by the way will expire, I believe, in 2023, or 2024. So it was an 8-year agreement. There's a chance to jump in and get in on the next iteration of this, a narrow window for us to do that. But the advantage that will be presented there, which we might get exactly the same rate that we're getting here now, but it would mean that the JPA board, instead of the city manager, would be doing the negotiations, would get the results of we would get the benefits of the collective bargaining that the JPA does. There are actually 8 different entities within the county that participate in that. Some smaller pieces of the county, but also 5 cities in the county. And so I just wanted to say, I think we would realize, if not a cost savings, a savings of effort amongst the city staffers. So thanks for your time.
Thank you. Janet, do we have anyone else online?
Mayor Juan, I do not have any other hands raised on this item.
Okay. And with that, I will close public comment, and we will move on to sub-item 6, objectives. Did you want to kick us off?
Certainly. So Rick is going to go over and take notes for you all, and I'd just like for you to start with, I know, Mayor, you had asked the council members to come prepared with some items that they would like to see as goals and priorities, so we'd just like to start putting them down.
I will preface this by saying I think we do have to exit the room in 30 minutes. So
We have to be out in 30 minutes, which means we probably need 5 minutes to clean up, correct? Yeah, 5 to 10.
So we did intend to have this a bit of a longer discussion, and we may need to bring it up again at another time just because of the time constraint. But 25 minutes is probably not sufficient for the nature of this discussion. So I think at most, or at least, maybe is a better way to say it, at least identifying those things that we see as priorities, and then, we probably won't be able to get into a detailed discussion of each of these, but I think we will be able to at least have them present so that we can start the thought process and then bring it back for discussion or further refinement at a later time. I think that's probably the best way to go.
That's correct.
Are we going to rush the board or?
Yeah, so no, you guys can, Rick's going to capture them for you, so you can just start throwing out ideas that you have.
Okay.
That's,
awesome.
Whatever, whoever'd like to start first.
It is a little chilly, huh? All right.
That was to keep everybody awake.
Yeah. I actually I came with 3, but then as we were discussing, I added a few more, so I don't know if that's helpful. I'd be glad to go through a list. We can jot it down, and then I won't really expand on it, though, if that's okay. I think maybe we'll wait for Councilmember Tillman to return.
I think that'd be good. At 10 till, let's wrap up, start wrapping up, decide next steps, what we want to do, and then try to be out of here by 6 o'clock for the next meeting to start.
Okay, so each of you gets 4 minutes.
And we can also have a part 2 to this, right?
Yes, we will certainly.
We need to follow up.
We will have more
Yeah,
discussion, I am sure.
Okay.
Yeah, it was very beneficial, I think, to do the depth that you did, having Rick here to answer questions, and also staff available here. So I think it was worth the time it took to do the discussion.
At our next go-around, we may not have Rick, but we'll see. We were pausing for a moment. So what we're going to do, in the interest of time, we don't really have the time to go into detail, but we will. I do want to make sure that we at least identify some of the things that we've priorities for ourselves, and then we will bring back a more in-depth discussion at a later time. So I'd be glad to kick us off. I think number one for me is financial stability and everything that is related to that. The staff resources and tools I see as a very high priority. I think these are easy wins, and we can hit some, not all, but some. At our next meeting, we will be talking about the GAD, and for you, that is GHAD, and its responsibilities, resources, and constraints. So that and the what is necessary to do the work of the GAD is going to be a topic. Climate tech and all the ancillary work with climate tech is up there as well. Our investment policy is also important here. And then I wrote down the same thing 3 times for some reason, so I'm not going to say that. But I do think a review of our on-call contractors is also something that we should be undertaking this year. All right. Who would like to go next?
Okay. Well, I'm going to just jump in here a little bit and I'll try to be as brief as possible. So I also had the vendor contractors. I would also like to explore ideas of revenue generating ideas so that it's not all about cost cutting. And I don't know if revenue generating is grant opportunities and yeah, I'd like us to explore that as a group a little bit more. I know we're going to be talking about an improved investment policy and an updated master fee schedule. The other thing that when I met with Director Ayers a few weeks ago, we're about 2 years out, just thinking a little bit more long-term than right in front of us, as our general plan is due in 2025. So that's maybe something to put on the longer term. Obviously, we also have Apex is engaged to do our IT infrastructure updates. And does that include our website? I feel like I never get a direct.
No, it does not. We have a separate person that handles our website.
That's Paul that does that.
Correct.
Separately. Okay. And then the other thing I had for landscaping and maintenance were park improvements. I know we have a grant for Clayton Community Park and the Grove. I also, I don't know if there are timelines on those and if we've earmarked exactly how we're going to be spending. I think it's 185 and 250. I think that's all that I have. Thank you.
Did you want to add?
I'll let my colleague speak first.
Nope, I'd like him to go.
We could start the Jeopardy timer.
I'll keep it short and simple. We tried to do this last year. We tried to have a conversation about budget and our long-term budget concerns, which were very evident to us last year. We never really got to that decision. And we have had a great presentation tonight where we showed that our staff is fully not supported because of the amount of effort that was given to them last year and the complaints for their not working hard enough. So my primary goal is to address those financial considerations based on your report and figure out how we're going to solve the problems so the staff feel supported so that our citizens can get the services they expect from our city.
I'll keep it shorter since a lot of the things that I had are already listed here, in particular the revenue generation or generating ideas. Definitely digging into the landscape maintenance ballot measure piece and making sure that we don't miss that window. In addition to that, having real discussions on if we can't actually generate revenue in the 2023-24 budget by June, we have to have real discussions on how we're actually going to staff these gaps that we have, because it's critical and it's clear that we can't continue on. And we can't do it tonight since we now only have 20 minutes to be in here, but we have to have a real discussion. And to Frank's point on bridging the divide, it can't happen until we actually talk about why we don't like each other, which is clear. So, Vice Mayor Diaz, I'll start. I know that you don't like me because I'm a progressive and I'm a Democrat. And I know that you're angry because in 2017, a group of us came in here and let you know that you did not speak for us when you wrote that letter on letterhead to our congressman. And so I'm looking at you now and I'm asking you, if you have an issue with me, please come speak to me directly. I know that you spoke to this gentleman here and shared with him that you didn't care for me and that you think that I'm dividing our town. And if that's your case and that's what you really feel, speak to me, because this divide is not helping our staff. It's not helping our residents, and none of this is going to get fixed if we don't talk. Mayor, I know that you also have an issue with me. I think we both realize that we're both smart people, and I know that you didn't like how I called you out just before the election, but I meant every word that I said, and I'm happy to sit down with you to explain to you how come I said it. I think it's evident with a lot of the things that, especially what happened and how you got something on the agenda last week, was part of the reason that I have an issue with you. We don't have to do it here today, but us three need to talk about our own issues. You two need to talk about your issues. Kim, I will sit with you and talk about the issues that I have and how you guys have all acted, how we all have. But these folks need to understand what's happening and how come we can't get stuff done is because until you got in the seat as mayor, people who supported you didn't care that there was a division. But now that you're a leader, they would like you to look like you're a leader. I get that. But let's not have a facade on what's really happening now. That's what I would like to talk about.
I think we're getting plenty done.
People don't think we are. That's what Frank just said.
I think he identified that there wasn't anything done in the last 2 years, but in the last 3 months, I think we've exceeded that already.
You continued what we had already started. That's what I mean by being disingenuous.
That's fine. I'm
Okay.
comfortable with that.
Okay.
Did you have anything you'd like to add?
Of course, I'm never lack for words. I want to look at a potential initiative to fund public safety. And the city manager and I have talked about it, and I don't know the correct phrasing. I've always thought about it as a public safety services district or something that would definitely fund only the police department and keep it whole, whatever that is. We need to go into depth on that because although right now we're talking about adding at the top, we need to add at the bottom. And that's what I think that would help fund. Secondly, and I hope you all accept this for what it's worth, I'd like to explore the possibility of a cannabis facility in the city limits. I've done an May I speak, or would you like the microphone?
You have the floor. Please continue.
I've done a certain amount of investigation in this. 2 cities in particular, San Jose and Antioch. Antioch has 5 or 6 dispensaries. Those dispensaries individually contribute to the city anywhere from $25,000 a month to $60,000 a month. The issues that have to be faced, and they're going to be tough, are security, because there's a lot of cash that flows through those operations, and it's going to be on the responsibility of the owners of that those businesses. They're fully legal now. We might as well try to capture some of that. And the other one is going to be parking. And some of the limitations that wherever an entity is destined or proposed to be, is going to be the surrounding businesses and what they may have in their agreements with the property managers that would say, we don't want any smoke rooms in 500 feet, 1,000 feet of it. But anyway, I think it's worth looking into. if we're going to look for ways to shore up our shortfall. Thank you. Thank you, Scott. I've been waiting for you to applaud something that I said.
All right, so if there's no other things that anyone would like to add? All right. So I think we were going to do quick next steps. We have 9 minutes, perhaps. If you have a suggestion.
I think I'd like to schedule another special meeting for the council so that we have time to develop it and it doesn't get crunched in a regular city council meeting. So that could either go before a council meeting if you all would like, maybe an hour and a half or so, or we can do it on another date. And so this day and time seems like it worked okay for you all, and I think there's 10 or so people, a dozen people here. So maybe a Monday from 3:30 till 5:30 again, we can schedule it without
That's going
anything
to be
behind it.
challenging for me. I think I would prefer if we do it after a meeting or
At the end of a city council
at the
meeting?
end of a meeting. I think
Okay.
it would be better.
We can pick a meeting that doesn't have a big agenda, which they're all starting to get pretty big
They're
at
all
this
pretty
point.
big at this
yeah,
point, all
they're
the way
starting
out
to. Probably till the
May.
Probably until May. So if this
That's a little bit late though. So let's see what is on the docket that we could shift if we need to, because I do think it'd be good to have some of the items talked about earlier rather than later. Some of these are already in flight as well, so I think it would be good to kind of flesh them out a little bit, so then we could do a prioritization exercise. Because it'll have to happen with sufficient time to incorporate into the budget, as well as do some load balancing for staff time. So I think that discussion sooner rather than later is better.
So I can just say the 21st, we have the GAD discussion at their GAD meeting at the end of the city council meeting, so that's going to be a long night. The 4th is going to be the mid-year budget, climate tech, that's going to take time. So I don't know about putting it at the end of that meeting. So the next meeting would be the 18th. And the only thing about that is it just pushes into the budget process a little bit because we're putting together the budgets right now. So if we want to do it on a regular council meeting, those are kind of our options.
I know we're here a long time on the 21st, since we have that second round. Is there a gap between those interviews and the council meeting?
It depends on how long. So that's a possibility of the interviews 1 to 5, and then doing 5:30 till 7. Do a session before.
Be a really long day, but you're bringing us dinner, so.
When do we eat?
Yeah.
That's all, yeah.
Yeah, we can arrange dinner in between that, so you can wolf it down quickly. So.
And then that's GAD too on the 21st.
And that's Larry thinks probably about an hour and a half discussion on GAD. It's a pretty big item.
Let's do that tentatively for now, and then I have to look at to make sure that it'll jive.
One more question, Mala. Do we have a closed session on the 21st for something as well? We had talked about, I think, with Dana.
Yes, we do have a real property discussion on an affordable housing unit.
That's at the end of the 21st? Probably.
Probably at the end after the GAD.
Okay.
We
This
were-
will be a long night.
I think we were trying to do it before the meeting, but it's the pleasure of the council.
It might be a heater. Yeah, I think let's do that tentatively for now, and we can all reconfirm after we have a chance to warm up and look at the calendar.
If I might ask, how much time are you thinking this process will take for us to go through this and develop them further, based upon what we've discussed today?
Usually this all happens in the 2 hours that we usually have. So,
Maybe an hour
Yeah.
would be enough time?
yeah, because we've already had their reports and asked them questions, and
Okay. So I'll plan on an hour, and we'll see how that all works out.
Sounds good. All right.
Okay.
With no further comments, I think, where are we at here? All right, that concludes item number 4, and then second item number 4 is adjournment. 5:51.